notes later that I've been
I've
taking
been
so far.
testing this entire time.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I will definitely upload the meeting minutes, so I take notes on these. Okay, sorry about that, y'all. I'm actually hearing from several people that they don't think there should be a minimum requirement from in-district fundraising in order to qualify. Is that correct?
I guess that's what I agree with, but out of curiosity, what are some of those minimum requirements that other jurisdictions have? If you have them off the top of your head, it's also fine if you don't.
So if you go under the other localities tab on that spreadsheet, I do have the rules. Like Albuquerque requires at least 1%, I think, of the money you raise. I think it's of the donors have got to live in district. I think that's the only one I could find, actually.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can strike that provision if people don't think it's a good idea to have it in.
I can see the arguments for it, but I'm not fussed about it really.
Okay.
We all care. If you live in Multnomah County, you care with the county commission.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's talk about the stickiest part of it, and that is the numbers. And so what we're deciding here is what are the minimum number of unique individual donors who live in Multnomah County? How many of those have to give to your campaign in order to qualify for matching funds? Almost every single program, and you can see it in that other spreadsheet, has some required minimum number of donors. And that just shows that you have community support. And also that you're campaigning seriously too, because campaigning is hard work, and you have to prove that you have the ability to campaign effectively in order to get matching funds. So the city of Portland's is higher. It's you have to get at least 250 unique donors if you are running for city council or auditor, and 750 if you are running for mayor. So that's how they set their metrics, but those metrics are higher than I think probably what the county should set. And I can show you why. We don't have to go into great detail about it because I already sent you this ahead of time. But if you look under the total unique donors tab in that qualification threshold spreadsheet, you'll see the average number of donors that candidates usually have. And county races are, frankly, they're a lot smaller than city races in terms of the amount of money they bring in. And so, for the city council races in 2024 in Portland, the average city council candidate was raising somewhere north of 500 donors. And then for mayor, they were raising somewhere north of 1,000 donors. Most of the county commission candidates are not getting anywhere close to those numbers.
Wait, but when you change the rules of the game, you change the strategy of the game. So these are the numbers that county candidates are raising when there is no match. You suddenly get a match, and they're going to have a lot more donors. So the better question is, what was City of Portland looking like before they had a matching program, and then after, right? I'm not sure I'd want to set the matching numbers here so low. Because the whole idea is we want to generate. We want people to go out and talk to lots of people and raise lots of small donations.
Yeah, a good question. So I was actually trying to pull that information for you. How much did Portland Canada, how many donors did they have before? Unfortunately, we just don't have access to that because Orstar does that annoying thing where it collates all donations under $100. So, and those donors are not included in the openelectionsportland.org website. So unfortunately, we can't get that information. I do think, I would say, number one is that, as you're saying, I think what you're getting at, Kari, is very important, is that the point of these programs is to encourage candidates to reach out to more people and engage more people in their campaigns and democracy. So you do want to set the qualification numbers to be ambitious. You want candidates to have to really earn those matching dollars by talking to people in their community. So it's okay to go a little bit, I think it's okay to go above the average. But you want to be careful, because if you go too high above the average, then the only people that are able to qualify this program are incumbents or people who have vast donor networks. And it does exclude people who are first-time candidates, grassroots candidates, candidates from certain communities. and we want to make sure the program is accessible. So it's hard to get that balance right. How do you encourage candidates to like talk to more people, but also not set the qualification metrics extremely high?
Well, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it didn't look at the city of Portland. It did not exclude grassroots candidates. It did not, and actually, I'd love to hear from the folks who went through that program in terms of was the match really too high? I feel like we should be careful to set it too low because again, we want people connecting with voters, especially if the minimum donation remains moderate at $5. I feel like it's reasonable and that we're not requiring any unique donors from their district. And like as a steward of public dollars, it should be harder to access public dollars. So those are the two reasons why I think we should keep the maybe what did you say, 750 and 250? I knew it was 250 for city council, 750 for mayor.
For mayor, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we have two former candidates here.
Yeah.
Do you all want to talk about how hard was it to get to 250 unique donors?
I just will speak from my perspective, which I didn't participate in the program because I got into the race so late that I didn't qualify. So I'm actually not someone that can speak to having gone through it, but I did, of course, observe because I was a candidate. And to me, I just would caution that if you put too many barriers or you make it too hard to raise the resources and donations, then you're going to have candidates that are spending all of their time on fundraising and not instead of the real value add, which is out in the community and getting to know folks. So there's a balance here. And so I'm putting that out there as a general statement / caution. I don't know if Terrence has other thoughts he'd want to add on to that.
Yeah, I would just say I don't think there's nothing wrong with having a minimum. What I will say is that whether we like it or not, we often talk about equity and we look through certain lenses, but what we fail to realize is even people who serve in our community who are amazing people, but they come with systems, right? They come with not-for-profits that they've worked with for years. They come with amazing people who support activist work. And those things are very beautiful, but those are still systems. And what I've seen early in my race is that the folks that came with systems had a different fight that I did. They were hitting 250 overnight and getting matched donations 60 days before I was. And so I would just tell everybody, like, I don't think there's nothing wrong with having a standard 100, 150. 250 people it's really easy for some people, but if we really want regular folks to feel comfortable here, like right now, if I ran again, I already have a donor base, right? I could hit 250. But what about the individual that work hard every day, take care of their family, and don't have the start I have? I would say that we would automatically put them at a disadvantage. I think 250 is a really tough place to start somebody, but I think there's legitimacy in having a standard, right? There's legitimacy and there's responsibility that comes with saying, okay, let it be 125, 150, because that is a healthy starting place to know that you are a legit candidate and you're willing to put in the work. 250 is unreasonable, and it puts strain on regular folks that doesn't become fair as this race progresses. So I would just say we should come down. We should be conscious of the type of individuals we want to encourage to run in this race. And at some point, and the city has to be an example for us, y'all. When we look at the city race, most of the people who won already had deep political ties, already either worked for government or systems, right? It's tied to government. And we actually did not get what I think the voters' intention was. When you're talking about everyday folks without a bunch of government ties, we didn't see that show up. So if we want to be different, if we want to be intentional, we want everyday people to stand a chance, we have to give them the same start off, right? The same goal off of the starting line that I would get in my next race. So I would want to see regular folks people who are just believing in democracy not have to start from a deficit of 250 people. So that's my part, y'all.
Thank you. I'm gonna. We have a bunch of people raising their hands, so I'm just gonna take them in the order. Casey, I think you're next.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I have a ton that's additive to that, but I will amplify what Terrence just said. And I think if you're looking for there to be that true spirit of democracy where everyone stands a chance to be able to get the resources to have a compelling race and stand the chance to be elected, I think that you can't have it to be too onerous because, like Terrence said, everyone that really made it into office had a built-in constituency, so it was not a burden for them to get the donations and then just keep accreting the tranches of money. But for a regular person, that would have been far too much. So it's just I'm putting a fine point on it. So thanks, Terrence, for your thoughts.
You
Appreciate that, Marshall.
Just wanted to give the perspective of a lot of the candidates that I spoke with since we. Oh, sorry, my hand's being lowered. Anyways, a lot of the folks that I spoke to that we endorsed or interviewed, the 250 threshold wasn't impossible, but that next threshold was really, really cumbersome for folks. So I actually, what you have on this chart here, I think is more than fair. I think it's a little bit easier barrier, and I don't think it's an impossible level to get to those next tiers. I like what I see on the chart.
And I'm sorry, which chart are you referring to?
The chart that's in your metric draft proposal.
Oh,
The tier
okay,
one, two,
okay. Under the tier grant, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the first threshold, right? And I just want to emphasize what you're saying, Marshall, which is I agree where like the 250 I think is still a good standard. And past that, when you can actually reach the next threshold, it looks like, if I'm reading this right, at 250, you would qualify. You're saying I'm looking at the chair's race. Why is it on the tier grant, you'd qualify at 250, but on the ratio match, you'd qualify at 300? Are you looking at a difference between am I reading?
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe sending the metrics a little lower for the tier grant, just because like you do have to wait. I mean, the idea of the tier grant, one of the benefits is that you get that matching funds early,
Yeah.
and then they carry you through for a long time until you get to the next threshold. So if you set those metrics a little lower at the very beginning, they can get those matching funds. And of course, they still have to work for them, but they have to get those matching funds, and then they can carry them through for months on end until they get to the next threshold. So that's why I set the tier 1 threshold on tier grants a little lower than a ratio multiple match 1 and 2.
Two questions I had in terms of timeline. So obviously there's a deadline, but you could potentially have 15 months, depending on when you decide to run, right?
Mhm.
You could have, there is no timeline except for the deadline, right? And then so question mark. And then the second question I have for you is, I know that you can get your name on the ballot through signatures. We want all of these to be donations and no other method of qualifying. Do you know of any other public financing system that is a mix of donations and signatures to qualify for the program?
Yeah, so in that tab on the spreadsheet, I think there are 2 other ones that I identified. I think Seattle and Albuquerque both have petition signatures. I would say, like, I would encourage people not to go with a petition requirement. The city of Portland did have one initially, and then it moved away from it because, number one, it felt like getting the unique donors was doing the same thing as getting the petition signatures. It was showing you support, but petition signatures were like, they're much easier to get, and they don't always signal support in the same way like a donation does. And your other question about the timeline, yeah, so candidates could start running, I think in 2024 election, they could start running in like July 2023, and then they had to qualify by, I believe, August 27th, 2024. So most of the candidates, or I'm sorry, many of the candidates signed up, officially started in like late August, early September. That was like a really big launching point for a lot of candidates, and they usually got to 250 by around February or March. So that's how long it took them, which is like, what, 6 or 7 months to get to that point. If candidates started in January or February, they would usually get there by like the summer, June or July is typically when they would get there. But it does depend if, you're an incumbent, as I think was said earlier, it's much easier to get to there than if you're like a grassroots candidate. Taking it systematically, let's talk about the chair's race. And so the qualification threshold, if you look at the spreadsheet, the average number of donors a candidate has that they're running for chair in like the last few years has been 370. And if you just take the top performers, it's higher, 662. But I do think it's smart to base it on not on top performers, base it on the average of all the candidates, because again, we don't want to just let people who are incumbents or people with like huge networks get in. We do want, grassroots candidates to be able to qualify for this. We don't want to set the bar so high it's inaccessible. So, but anyway, that's the numbers 370 for candidates who are running for chair. Do people, the other thing is like, you don't want to set the threshold at the ceiling because it took them like all year. If it took them all year to get to 370, that means they don't get their matching funds until the very end, if that's where you set the qualification threshold. You want to set it a little bit below. So if you set it, for instance, at 200, and just pulling the number out, say at 200, then they're going to keep going, keep raising, and maybe even getting more matching funds. But so that's the average, but I would say like, don't set the threshold at the average, set it a little bit below the threshold or the average. But that all being said, how do people feel? I think that was 370 was that number. And then the draft proposal, I have it as 300 unique donors across the county to qualify for chair, or 250 for like a grant system. How do people feel about those numbers?
I mean, mayor of Portland was 750 to qualify.
It feels incongruous to have the chair so significantly below, given, there's a couple hundred, I don't know if there's a number of voters, more voters in the county's district boundary than there in the city of Portland. And if we're basing this on past performance, we're hoping this increases participation. So I wouldn't want to base it on past performance. I mean, if for me, I keep them, again, consistency, I keep them 750 and 250.
Okay, well, the one thing I will say is that we don't have any record of candidates getting to 750 unique donors.
But again,
And again, I
you
know
change
that
the name, you change the strategy.
yeah, I would make sure that this is a thing that is achievable, because this is the first time the candidates are going to be running under a new system, and so we don't have that like institutional framework in the same way like that we did for the city program. I think if people want to go with 750, I think that's absolutely your call, but that's like the caution I have about it too. What do other people feel about it?
I think the only argument to go below the mayor is that there are fewer people who care about the county. I mean, the mayor and city council gets a lot more attention than county chair and county commission. That is true. It's true for the media. It's all the coverage. So there's a little bit there, but there are just as many donors. There are actually more donors available in the county than there are in the city.
Helpful input.
Elisa?
For those who haven't spoken yet, any thoughts on going lower than 750?
I can understand like both viewpoints, so I'm just kind of grappling with it in my mind right now. So I don't know if I have an answer for you.
I guess I also think that county chair should be hard.
Mm.
County commissioner, maybe not, right? Like we want, there's 4 county commissioners, and if you're looking to be the chair of Multnomah County, you better be a pretty serious person.
Seeing some thumbs up there. Um, okay. If it actually sounds like we're close to consensus on 750 for the chair's race. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay. I'll put 750. And then so I'm gonna change that on ratio multiple match to 750. And then for commissioner, I had it for 200, but you know, I think the average number of candidates, donors that candidates have is like 257. So I've heard a desire to like kind of sync it up with Portland's program, which is 250. Is that what folks want? Is they want 250?
Yeah.
Fine with 250.
Great. So I'm gonna put that as 250. Then for sheriff, I had it at 75, which it does feel low, I will say that. But the average number of donors that they had was I think 112 from the last competitive race we had. And I will say that like it's a more rarefied donor pool that gives the sheriff candidates. So the Portland auditor is 250, and I will say both candidates got there. But do you all, I worry that 250 would be too high for the county sheriff. How do you all feel about that?
I'm honestly fine with 75 with both sheriff and auditor. I think they're such special races that I think there's enough limiting qualifications in those in the first place. Like I'm fine with 75.
Okay.
I agree that they're limited. I feel like for some reason 75 seems just like a weird number to me. Can we just go 100? That you have to get 100 donors.
That's fine too.
I don't think it's a big difference. I don't know why like below 100 seems to me so like.
Yeah, if you want to be a sheriff, you better have at least 100 friends.
Yeah. Right. And then for auditor, again, we don't have that.
Hopefully 50 of the sheriff's deputies will say, here's $5.
And then for auditor, again, we don't have the data on the auditor, but we do know that that is a much smaller race too. Do people want to set that at 100 as well? I'm getting a lot of thumbs up.
100's fine on my side.
Okay. And then the final thing is, I guess the other question I have is like, for the, I have these based on the policy. So ratio multiple match, we have the 750, 250, 100, 100. Do you all want it to be the same initial for the tier? If we do a tier grant, I want to be able to like bring these proposals to you all when we discuss methods of distribution. And so I want to know how to set those numbers too. So I could set the same ones for all those numbers as well. Like tier would also be 750 for chair, 250 for commissioner, and 100 for sheriff and auditor. Is that what you all want, or do you want like a different threshold for those?
Those all make sense as tier one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
And so
And I can
the day they
go ahead.
qualify is the day they get a check for their first grant.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll set that for that. And I can come back to you all with tier 2 and tier 3 when we talk about methods of distribution, if you'd like. Or you could set them here if you feel you have agreement on it. Okay. And then same numbers
The only
for
thing I would offer is when you come back is to, I think it was Kari's point earlier, or maybe it was Kesey, I can't remember, but the second hurdle is harder. So I wouldn't like double it, right? So like just be mindfully incremental is the only thing I would be thoughtful about for.
I'm trying to clarify. You want them to be narrower tiers or wider tiers?
Narrower tiers. Yeah.
So not 250, 500, 750, but rather like 250, 400, 650.
Yeah.
okay, I'm making a note of that. And not doubling. Great. All right. And then I think same for a ratio of multiple match plus grant. Again, the purpose of those is that like you do want to get candidates a grant early so that they can kind of start up and running. But if those are the thresholds you all like for the other ones, we could set those for this proposal too.
Yeah, again, that's the right tier one spot. I do have a question though. If it's 250, if I'm a commissioner, 250 is when I get my grant. Why isn't my 251st donation part of the match?
You know, I think and so in these programs what typically happens is that when candidates get to ratio multiple match, I will say we usually go back and match all the donations they've collected so far. So what I was thinking about that is like there were a number of candidates who got to the qualification number in the city, but they barely got over it. And so we saw the budget with that. So we saw the budget for them too. So I was wondering if there is a benefit to having the matching start at a different number than when they qualify for the grant. Because the grant's supposed to be kind of easier to hit so that you can get those initial funds and start campaigning. Is it wise to have the matching start then as well, or is it wise to have the matching start at a higher number too?
Yeah, I just think it's like, it's an odd thing to do, right? So like, I have to get 250 donations and then I get a grant. And then I gotta get 50 more or 100 more donations and nothing happens with those people. And then some future amount, then I get matching. That seems like an odd, like weird gap in the middle there. I would say get 250, you get your grant, and then every donation after that is matched.
Other folks?
That seems to make a lot of sense to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll get rid of that second tier. Great. Okay. Well, I'm wondering if it looks like we have consensus about this, and actually we have enough people to have a vote. We had one outstanding question, I think, about the, minimum 18, the age range.
So,
I think. Go ahead.
Daniel, sorry. I literally am like in a doctor's office waiting to go get my mammogram. So if you're gonna take a vote, do it right now. I'm just waiting for them to call me.
Great. Okay. Let's do a vote. And you can see all the provisions here. I've crossed out everything that we've eliminated, and we'll take out the part about the minimum age range until I come back with that research. But otherwise, we're voting on both the draft proposal for like the initial qualification thresholds, which is what I have written up there, and then those initial numbers 750, 250, 100, 100. Let's open the roll call, or do we have a motion for a vote?
So moved.
Second it.
All right, I'll go through it. Okay, Marshall,
Aye.
Becca,
Aye.
Kari,
Aye.
Felisa.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Kezia.
Aye.
Great. Okay. Thank you all. Amazing we have that vote. So in the final 15 minutes, I was going to report back on the subcommittee meeting so far. But actually, I think what I might do is run the recording requirements by you first, because that's a very easy conversation. So when I would think so. So the program has to, candidates are going to be reporting their donation and expenditures to the program for us to review for compliance. And the question before you all is, how many, when do they report those? And so the city and the state have the exact same reporting timeline, which is candidates are required to report once every 30 days. And then when it's within 42 days of the election or 6 weeks, it's once every 7 days. I'm going to recommend that we do the exact same thing because that is sufficient. And, for the program to be able to like see everything and review it. And also it makes sure there's like a single consistent reporting deadline. So that's my recommendation. But does anyone have any questions or other thoughts on that?
Just for clarification, there's not a deadline every 30 days, that every contribution must be reported within 30 days of that contribution.
Yeah, my apologies. That's what I meant. So if you got a donation on October 15th or like April 15th, then you have to report it within 30 days of that donation.
Completely agree, consistency, and would also aspirationally say, ideally, they're only reporting to one system. Because again, my understanding, the City of Portland candidates have to report to the City of Portland as well as to Orstar. So let's aim for one system of reporting.
Yeah, we are currently in discussions about or we're gonna start exploring technology and how we can build our own website about that. So TBD on that question, but I hear it.
I think Becca said the exact opposite, Daniel,
Exactly. No
which is
individual website for-
no technology. Yeah, no Multnomah County website. Report it to Orstar. Multnomah County can pull it off Orstar or get an intergovernmental agreement with the Secretary of State to get the list.
Well, I will say like this conversation's from what we know about the website so far, this conversation is a little more complicated. So I'm gonna ask that we take it up later because like there's actually a lot of other factors involved in this.
Sure.
But for the
The Secretary of State's also in the process of completely rebuilding Orstar. So
thank God.
Yeah.
yes, thank God.
Hopefully they
Uh,
will make accommodations to be able to do real-time data sharing with local jurisdictions.
Yeah, it'd be great to move into the 21st century.
Build an API, get it done. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, the proposal is a timeline, which is do we align with the City of Portland and state's timeline, which is you report 30 days from when you got the transaction or when you spent the money. And then within 6 weeks, you report every 7 days. Do we have a motion and a second?
Move that we align totally with the state reporting requirements.
Second.
I'll second.
And I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. I'm asking that we align with the timeline. I think the reporting requirements we have might have to be our own thing.
Timeline reporting, the timeline of the state reporting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we have a vote before us. Kezia
Aye.
and Beth,
Aye.
Felisa,
Aye.
Kari,
Aye.
Becca,
Aye.
and Marshall.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So I sent you over a document with the subcommittee write-ups. I'll update it when we have another one from the violation subcommittee. I'm going to write that out for you all. And then next week we'll have the final one from the oversight committee. Then we'll be done with the subcommittees. So there's no action required on that. I just wanted to send it to you ahead of time. I unfortunately think I know we initially said there would be like a chance for the full IAC to then instruct the subcommittee to go back to the drawing board or to change things if they wanted to. I actually unfortunately don't think we're going to have time for that. So, but we do have lots of time for the full IAC to take up these subcommittee recommendations and debate them and discuss them. So there's still a space for everyone on the full IAC to engage in these policy discussions. So there's no action required. I just want to send it to you all beforehand. The one final thing is, well, actually, did anyone have any questions on that first? Okay.
We're doing
The
a good
final-
job. This is so far so good.
Yeah. And then the final piece is, as I think I said before, we do need to probably add in a few more meetings just to make sure we get through everything before the report is due. We are presenting before the county commission on April 15th, and we have to have the deliverable before then. So what I'm asking is if people can, we have a meeting already scheduled for Friday, next Friday. If we can set up a time to meet on the following 2 weeks, I think will be good. That should allow us enough time, hopefully. So the next Friday meeting is Friday the 14th at 9 a.m., which has already been scheduled. Going forward for the 21st and the 28th, those are also Fridays. Do people want to pick like 9 a.m. as well, or do people want to pick the 3 p.m. time we had today?
I think I slightly prefer this time, but if 9 a.m. works better for more folks, then I'm happy to do that.
Beth, you refer to the 3 p.m. time, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay. Does that work for other calendars?
I can participate via phone, right? I will
Yes.
be in an airport. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough for me to make those, but I'll do the best I can.
All right. Thank you all. So just to clarify, we're keeping the 9 a.m. time for next time because it's already on everyone's calendars. And then after we'll have a 3 p.m. for the Friday the 21st and Friday the 28th.
Yes, that's great.
And I'll follow up with calendar invites too, of course. Okay. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for like making this work. We got through 2 major recommendations today, and that really is a big deal. So with that, I'll let you have 9 minutes back on your Friday.
Thanks.
Thank
you all.
I
All right. Take care.